Hi, everybody. Today we are going to talk about the 7 deadly sins and how they affect us and why we need to be aware of them. So, the list of the 7 deadly sins are pride, envy, wrath, which is anger, sloth, which is not necessarily just laziness, but sloth, gluttony. What are the other ones? Gluttony, lust, and greed. Okay, and greed is another way to say that one is avarice. Now, a lot of people don't realize that the most deadly of the deadly sins is actually pride. Why? So, I want to kind of give a visual of what pride is. In the Divine Comedy, Dante's Divine Comedy, what happens is Dante actually travels down to hell and then he travels up to heaven. There's a reason for this. Why do we travel downward before we go upward? A lot of times in life, we hear about people needing to hit rock bottom before they can improve themselves. And that's kind of a similar approach. We have to examine the sins that we're committing. We have to examine the damage that's happening in our lives before you can rise up. Let me give you an example. So let's say you are allergic to grass and you do not know it. Okay, so you go and lay in the grass and then you are itchy and covered in welts. Well, you think to yourself, because you don't know what it is, what's at the root, oh, I probably was just getting ant bites. So I'm gonna put on some bug spray and then I'm gonna continue to sit in the grass. So you sit back in the grass, you still get the welts. Okay, maybe I was getting these welts because I have dry skin. So you put on lotion, you lay back down in the grass, you still break out in hives because you are actually allergic to the grass. So this is kind of the idea. If we are committing a sin that is causing damage to our lives, but we don't actually know what we are doing or why we are doing it, you cannot get better, okay? Now, when we look at the 7 deadly sins, we have to examine ourselves and, question like, am I doing this? Am I doing it in a small way? Am I doing it in a big way? So when we talk about Dante's Divine Comedy and we talk about pride, there is, he travels all the way down to the depths of hell and he meets Satan. Now, something extremely interesting happens when he meets Satan. Keep in mind, this is just a story. This isn't like canon law or anything like that. But when he meets Satan, Satan is frozen and he doesn't have any awareness of Dante because Satan is trapped in the most deadly of the sins, which is pride. So Satan has actually no concern for what's happening around him because he's completely turned inward. That's what pride does to us. We turn it completely inward and we are focused only on ourselves. Now, Aquinas tells us that there are 4 ways that pride can manifest in ourselves. So we attribute perfections to ourselves that we don't actually possess. We think that we've achieved perfection through our own hard work. We think that we possess perfection because for some reason we are more deserving than others, or we are unwilling to share the perfection that we have and that is given to us by God with someone else. So that's basically like, say that I'm really good at, I don't know, my talent when I was growing up, I loved painting and art. So say that I had a lot of pride in my talent of art. I did not want to help anybody with it. I didn't want to share it with anybody. That's another form of pride. Now, the opposite of pride would be embracing humility, having the ability to surrender, but we need to be able to turn ourselves outward to other people. So essentially, like what we have with us, what we have to offer people, we need to give that to people. Okay, that's basically what it means. Now, the next the next sin we'll talk about is envy. Now, envy and envy and greed are both on this list. They're kind of similar. They're not completely similar. Envy is when you are breaking that commandment of being envious of your neighbor, basically. Coveting what your neighbor has, one of the 10 commandments that you do not covet what your neighbor has. So envy is when, even if it's, someone in your family, let's say it's your older brother. He made it into National Honor Society and you were not able to. If you have a feeling inside of you where you are not happy for that accomplishment he achieved, but you are angered by it, that's envy. If a friend of yours wins a competition, or they don't even have to be a friend, just another person wins something that you wanted to win, that's envy. If you see somebody walking around with, I don't know what the youths are into today, really a new phone, Apple Watch, Birkenstocks, whatever, whatever it is, and you're angered by them having something, that's envy. Now, envy is, it can really eat you up, okay? Because what it basically establishes in your brain is winning, losing, okay? I'm either winning or I'm losing. If I'm losing, I hate the winner. And if I'm winning, I start to fall into pride, okay? So this is how these sins are connected. So we need to ask ourselves, when that feeling creeps up, say, you feel it like somebody did better than you in a class or whatever, in a sport or band, and you have that feeling welling up, you need to notice it and tell yourself, it is time for me to be happy for that person. Yes, I want to achieve that. I'm going to let it be a motivator, but I'm happy for what they have. Now, in Dante's Divine Comedy, when he talks about whenever he's going down towards hell, pride is our last one, but when he's going down towards hell and he sees the people who are envious, who went to hell for being envious, again, keep in mind, this isn't like canon law or anything. It's just a story that I think does an excellent job of driving some points home. But people who are suffering greatly with the sin of envy have their eyes sewn shut because they lost the ability to know if they were winning or losing. That is hell for them. They don't know if they're winning or losing, okay? Now, the next of the deadly sins that we'll talk about is anger or wrath. Now, this one's tricky because I know that for me, one of my biggest issues, I definitely struggle with pride, but anger is one of my big ones. Now, when is anger bad? It is when it blinds you with the passion for revenge. Now, there's justified anger also. I want you to think for a second, let's think of a scenario. Say that you have, as me being a mother, if anybody hurts my kids, I am very aware that I could turn vengeful or violent. I know that. And, I don't like that necessarily, but at the same time, I have that, as we joke about it, the mama bear in me. If anybody ever assaulted my children or something, there's a real possibility that I would land in jail because I would be blinded by anger and that passion for revenge. Okay, so let's say something did happen to one of my children. Somebody hurt one of my children severely. What would be better? For me to know how to control the anger and turn towards loving my child, or me turning towards revenge and ending up in jail or something, I don't know. But we have to understand what anger is leading us to do. If you feel angry about something, sometimes this is justified. Sometimes it's like, yes, this was not good. I feel anger about it. But that anger is meant to call you into further examination. It is not meant to control you. If it takes you over, it's entered into the deadly sin realm, okay? We have to be a little gentle with ourselves because a lot of this stuff is emotionally connected. Actually, all of the ones that I'm listing right now, these are of the spirit. These sins are of the spirit. When we get to gluttony and lust, those are bodily sins. You have to remember, we are body soul composites. So some more affect the soul, some affect the body stronger. But let's move to sloth. Now, sloth is not laziness. Don't be lazy anyway. Don't just lay around all day. But sloth is when you have depression or sorrow in spiritual things, not as in mentally ill depression. That's different. But you have a boredom in your soul, an apathy. And this is something that I have fallen into before where I just didn't care. I was like, I'm indifferent. I'm seeking nothing. I have no zeal for the mission of God or doing God's work. I have been there pretty heavily. And the thing is every single one of you have a purpose, and every single one of you, every single day, can affect somebody else with love. So if you are in this sloth where you just don't care, one of the best steps you can take is, I'm just going to love somebody today, whether it's small or whether it's big. So if you know somebody at school, for example, that has a very difficult time, maybe they don't have a lot of friends, what if you just went up to them and said, I really like that shirt, or I like your shoes. Say something nice to them. That's sharing love. And that is one of the ways that you can pull yourself out of sloth, because once you see how capable you are of making other people feel joy and happiness, it wakes your soul back up. It's really kind of amazing. So whenever we tell little kids, like, do one good deed a day, that benefits them just as much as it benefits the person that they're doing that good deed for. Now, gluttony. Gluttony is the unreasonable pleasure in food or drink. But you can be a glutton for a lot of things, okay? I skipped greed. I just realized that. We'll go back to greed. But gluttony is when you have a disordered understanding of things that you need to survive. So we need food, we need drinks, but when that becomes your happiness, that's when it's wrong. That's when it's disordered. You have to eat. So there's nothing wrong with eating. And additionally, there's nothing wrong with making food that tastes good. It's when your happiness hinges on those things, that's when it becomes a deadly sin. Now I'm bouncing back to greed. I skipped to the body, left one out of the soul. Greed is another one of the soul. It's also known as avarice. Now this is when you have a misunderstanding of the purpose of created things. What does that mean? Stuff is your happiness. Just like with gluttony, the physical pleasure of eating is your happiness. With greed, you mistake all the things created as a source of happiness. They are a means to happiness. They can bring you closer to God. They can bring you happiness. Like I have all sorts of plants. I have pets. I have lots of earthly creations around me that bring me great happiness. But I see the connectedness they have to their creator. I'm not the creator, but I see the connectedness they have. I actually often pray in my rooms with the plants, which actually at this point, every room of my house has plants. But I love to look at them and reflect on the fact that this created thing provides me oxygen. It's giving something to me that I could not get on my own. That's an understanding of the creator being involved in a created thing. However, when you simply enjoy the item as your means for happiness, that's when it's a misunderstanding of how to be in a relationship or to have a relationship involving created things. So our last one that we'll talk about is lust. Now, this is the one that usually I get a lot of giggles about whenever I talk about it in person, but this is a video, so I can't hear you laughing. What is lust? Lust is not sexual attraction. Lust is not sex, okay? I need to hammer that home because a lot of times people misunderstand that. Having physical desire for another person is not necessarily a sin. Say your sexual desire is focused at a married person, that's probably not appropriate. Or if your sexual desire or attraction to somebody else is focused on you using them or you using them as an item, that's when it's a sin. In marriage, that is something that you need. The sexual desire for each other, that desire to be connected with each other, that's something that you need, especially, to have a long, healthy relationship. That's part of marriage. It's a beautiful thing. It is not sinful. But when sex or sexual pleasures become distorted, you're no longer protecting it for what it is. It's something so special that needs to be protected. When you start to distort it and use another human being, that's when it becomes a sin. Now, to kind of sum this up, we need to allow God to purge us of these sins. And the only way we can do that is by acknowledging the sins. A lot of times, this is one of the places where the sacrament of reconciliation is excellent, because the sacrament of reconciliation gives you the opportunity to say, hey, here are the things that I've been doing. I don't know how to get better. And a lot of times a priest can say, okay, this is actually you falling into the sin of envy. And they can help you. They can help you understand how to take steps. But ultimately, if we are going to allow God to purge us of these sins, we have to acknowledge them and we have to share them. You can't keep it a secret. I think that that's one of the things that it saddens me greatly working with teenagers, because there are so many times that they've been like, I've been watching porn and I'm too embarrassed to ask for help. Or I've been drinking and I don't know how to get help for that because it's an embarrassment. People don't want to feel like they've failed. FYI, we're all failing in one way or another. But having that bravery to dive down, just like in Dante's Divine Comedy, diving down into the depths of hell to understand ourselves, that is the means for us to rise back up. So what I want you to write about in your journal, it'll be more vulnerable. Pick out, one or two of these sins and explain how it's affecting you. And after you write that down, how it's affecting you, I want you to come up with a couple of solutions for how you think you can step out of the sin. Okay, so that is it. And I hope you guys enjoyed the 7 Deadly Sin video. I'm going to do a video on essentially the opposites of these sins, which are the virtues, which is after you figure out that you're sinning in a certain way, that's where the virtues come into play. So everybody have a great day, week, whatever it is. And I will be back with you next time. Bye.